Good morning and happy Friday. Welcome back to In the Trenches with Dr. Tammy. I am super excited today. It's been a crazy couple of weeks. As you know from last week's episode, I was a bit under the weather. And today I'm feeling much more like myself. But also, what I'm excited about is if you can tell by what I'm wearing, January is a special month for some of us. So, to my brothers of Phi Beta Sigma, happy Founders Day to you. Happy Founders Day. Happy Founders Day. I hope that you are enjoying it. I hope that you are standing true to your principles. I know you are. But most importantly, this Zeta loves you. Now, back to the episode this week. Most previous episodes were a bit heavy. You know, I talked about the relationships, the heartbreak, giving yourself grace. I talked a bit more about things with my mom, and we'll come back to that another time. But I shared that unspoken dynamic that people tend to not discuss when it comes to mothers and daughters. Last week's episode, though, was kind of new, the first of its kind, and hopefully we'll do that once a month where I threw out a few things to you that were said to me, and I gave my rapid fire take on it for our very first Fire Take Friday. But for today, we're going to get back to some of the things that we were talking about when we originally started the podcast, because I'm getting some of those very same questions. People are coming back to me and asking me more about my personal journey, more about my personal relationship journey. So I've been asked this question a lot on social media. Honestly, I'm trying not to get tickled because it's flattering. But as the younger crowd would say, my DMs are filled to capacity. Now, mind you, again, it is very flattering. And some of the questions are quite harmless. Some of the comments are a bit risque. Let's just call it that. So to be clear, we're going to talk a bit about some of that today and about where it is that I personally stand, because that's been asked of me a lot recently. So I am still very much single, unfortunately, because I don't desire to be single. I know, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, I know very much so that I am going to be a blessing to somebody's son. Lord knows I am. And I don't say that because I feel some kind of way that I'm arrogant or I'm cocky or anything like that. I say that because I know what I've prayed for. I know what I've asked God to provide for me. I know what I've asked him to be able, for me to be able to give to someone else. Because as you know, if you've been watching the podcast, you know that I've been in two very long relationships. One was a marriage, and then the one to follow was a relationship, which we now are calling a situationship, because of course it turned out to be not so great in the end. And people ask me, well, how do you still smile through that, Dr. Tammy? How do you still even want to be in love? How do you even have the capacity to love? I have the capacity for it because I have God's grace. I shared with you all before that I took a lot of time to heal. And what I want to say to you about that is, while I have healed to a point, and I'm going to say it this way, to an extent in which I'm ready to be in a relationship, I need us to not forget that healing is always an ongoing journey, because as I shared before, when you think you're healed, sometimes there is something that pops out of nowhere and it's a trigger that you didn't know you had. But my best advice to you on that is, if you're triggered by something or someone and you're trying to date, or you're trying to already be in a relationship, make sure you share with them what happened in that moment, because we don't want the next person to suffer or to be hurt by something that we brought in with us. We think we're healed. Oftentimes we do, and we believe that because many of us have gone to therapy. Many of us are still in therapy, and we think we're there. And sometimes we're not already 100% there. However, we are still ready and open for love. So when it comes to me, I am most definitely still, sorry, my nose is itching. We are still very much ready to love. I am. I'm open to that. But what I am open to is the man who possesses the ability to understand that I am still a work in progress. Because aren't we all still a work in progress? Are we not all still trying to achieve some goal, whether it's personal, whether it's professional? Are we not still growing? I would hope so. Because one of the things that I'm doing and have done in the past is I am continuing to reflect upon my actions, what I'm doing every day, what I'm thinking. Because I'm going to tell you this, I'm an overthinker. And oftentimes those thoughts of mine will have me questioning everything that I thought I might have been ready for. And sadly, I'm often wrong, and I'm not going to, lie about it, because if you're an overthinker like me, you overanalyze every single thing. So the man in my life who wants to be in my life needs to understand that I would need actions to support words, because whatever words that are spoken to me, I'm going to replay those. I'm going to think about those. I'm going to analyze what those may have meant. Now, for some of you who are listening to this, that may be a red flag for you. And that's okay. Let me tell you why. Because the man who God made just for little old me, he won't have a problem with understanding who I am. Because just like with him, I am going to accept him with every single flaw that he brings to the table and love him anyway. Because we cannot just expect for a person to come into our lives and change to fit everything that we would want them to be. If they don't already have those characteristics that you want, then maybe that's something that you shouldn't enter into. And that's something that we need to think about as we move forward. I know that for me, as I'm looking at entering the dating scene, as scary as that sounds, I want to have those conversations. And I often refer to those as courageous conversations, because for me, I am 54 years old. I will be 55 in July. And I don't want to waste any time. I want to upfront say what it is that I need Because if he needs to remove himself immediately, hey, no harm, no foul. Because I don't want to spend weeks, months, and years, as we spoke about in a previous podcast, hoping and praying that this person will be what it is that I need, or vice versa. I will be what it is that he needs. We need to have those conversations up front. We need to determine whether or not we have some things in common. And I say things in common because I don't need someone who's identical to me. I need someone who can add value to what I already have as a person. And when I say add what I have, I'm not talking material stuff. Y'all know how I feel about that. I'm not talking about money. I am saying, what does he add to my life in regard to support, in regard to caring for me, in regard to making sure that I understand that it's just us. It's the two of us. It's not me, him, this lady down the street, this one around the corner, this one in another state. That our goals just between the two of us coincide. That our goals are leading us somewhere as a couple. And I say as a couple because for me, at the very beginning, and I know people say, oh, Dr. Tammy, you don't know how to date. You're absolutely right. I probably do not. Because at the very beginning, I'm looking at whether or not this is a long-term situation. And some people say you just date. That's great for them. But for me, I'm a bit more old-fashioned. So I'm going to have these conversations up front. I am going to speak with you about what our commonalities are. I'm also going to speak with you about what our differences are. Because one thing we don't ever need to forget is that differences are okay. Because let me tell you, where I may be weak, he may have a strength in. And that can elevate us as a couple. It can even elevate me as an individual. That to me is extremely important. Intelligence, conversation, all of those things that people tend to forget because we are so busy checking out the physical, checking out how they look all the time. Now, Dr. Tammy is not saying that you don't need to or you shouldn't want to look at your person when you wake up in the mornings, because I'm going to say this for the record. The person that I'm with long term, my person, my significant other, my boo, whatever y'all want to call it, who I hope to eventually be my husband, I absolutely want to wake up in the morning and look at him and say, dang, I love him. Not just for who he is, not for what he does, but his character, his being, his whole being, everything about him. Yes, I know. You say, Dr. Tim, you like him tall and thin. I do. I prayed about that. I did. So y'all have to forgive me for that. But more important than his height or his body build is his character. And y'all know this. He has to be somebody who is honest, trustworthy, caring, loves his family, can make me laugh, can read my mind, so to speak, because I want to be sitting in a room, and we don't even have to be sitting next to each other. He could be all the way across the room, but he could know, oh, she's ready to go. Or I need to go over there and check on her because she's about to let somebody have it. Or just give me that look across the room to say, hey, you know what, babe? Everything is all right. I want to know that when I walk into a room and he sees me, that everything in his world is all right. Because I want to give that to him. I want to be that good thing for him. And if y'all don't know what that means, you better pull out your Bible. But I want to be that for him. So I am telling you right now, today, for the second time in this episode, I am a whole blessing. Not because I claim it to be, but because he told me so. Yes, as I answered earlier, I am still very much single. I think I'm okay with that most days. Some days, not so much, because I feel like I have so much to offer. And I want you, as you're thinking about your journey, as you're thinking about dating, or even if you're in a relationship, just remember to give grace. Remember that your person is not going to be perfect. And I need the person who may be looking at this, who thinks that he's my one, to know that he has not be perfect. I'm not seeking perfection because it doesn't exist. It does not exist. But what does exist is the ability of two very imperfect people to be perfect for one another. Everything that they have is a balance for the other person in their life. Y'all know I'm not about to say what you bring to the table because I could care less about that. I just need you to have some ambition, some goals. Are you going somewhere? What's your vision? How can I support it? And vice versa. Because like I told y'all before, y'all know how much I hate taking out trash. Can you do that for me? It's the simple stuff for me. It's the free-ish. You've heard me say that before. Can he be that for me? And back to the money, as y'all always want to talk about. If we are together, we're going to get to the money together, because that's what you do. You build with your person. That's what you do. Let him come ready to build. Let him come ready to support. Let him come open not only to love me, but to receive the love that I want to give him. Because what I have learned in my journey is that so many people are afraid to receive love because they've been hurt before. And we have to remember that the current person is not the other person. Even if something they may have said reminded you of that other person, they're not them. Talk to them about it. Tell them why it made you feel a certain way. Work through it. Because I'm telling you something that I know for a fact. There is an absolute shortage of loyal people. People who want to be there for you without expecting dollars and dollars and dollars to be spent, or vacations all across the world every other week. And let me say this, I'm not saying you shouldn't vacation with your person. I'm not saying money shouldn't be spent. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, please arrive with an expectation of them just to be a good person. If all those other things come with it, that's awesome. That is absolute awesome. But do not overlook the person who might be made for you because they didn't come wrapped in the package that you were expecting, or because they didn't come flashing their wallet or their credit cards at you. You don't know what that bank account looks like, nor should you be wondering. Because again, as I said, my person We'll get to that together because we will collaborate, we will build this legacy together. For my kids, for his kids, for our families, we will get there together. And I'm okay with that. So what I am saying to you right now is this. Be careful what you ask for. Make sure you know what it is that you want. Because as I told you before, I had all of the glitz and the glam and the everything, and it just turned out to be not so great a guy. As I move forward, I'm going to be who it is that I am. I am going to continue to grow, to continue to reflect, to continue to pray, because I know that my person is there. I sometimes feel that he already knows who I am, that he already has recognized me, because he's been praying for me. He's been looking for me. I say this. If you know that, move with it. Move with it, because it's okay to be afraid at times, particularly if you've been hurt. Y'all, we've been there. We've had things happen in our lives that were not so wonderful. But again, I ask this of you, if you're dating, to give that person grace, to give them an opportunity to make mistakes, because they will. We're all human. We're all very, very human. But if my person is out there and he's watching this and he knows it's me, just receive it. Just receive it. And that's okay. And so before I end this episode, before y'all say, oh, Dr. Tammy was on the podcast, beg it, absolutely not. She is simply saying to you, it's okay to know that you are a whole blessing to somebody. It's okay to put it out there in the atmosphere, because I am manifesting that. Now, y'all don't have to speak on it if you don't want to, but I am speaking mine into existence, because I know what is for me. I know it. I know it. I know it. It's time, I think. But I have to remind myself that it's all in God's timing. And I have to be humble enough to respect that and receive that. But as I end this podcast for today, I'm going to ask each of you this. If you're out there looking, if you're out there dating, are you missing your blessing? Are you missing your blessing because of the unrealistic expectations that you have placed on what you're looking for, on what you're willing to receive? I'm going to say this to you. I don't plan on missing my blessing. I'm waiting on him. Are you missing yours? Happy Friday. Thank you again for sitting with me and listening in the Trenches with Dr. Tammy. Much love. Have an absolutely wonderful, wonderful, wonderful weekend. And to my brothers, happy Founders Day.